Welcome to another episode of Tea Time with Twaambo. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it as I do every week. I hope you've had a wonderful week, and I'm just going to go straight into today's topic, and that is pride. I wanted to talk about pride and how I am struggling with it. I had a friend tell me the other day that they listened to this podcast and I sound like I have everything together. I don't have everything together. I do this podcast because I am learning about life, I am learning about myself, and I come here and I'm vulnerable with you because I'm hoping that as I go through this journey, you go through it with me and that you learn something about yourself as well. So I want to talk a little bit about pride. And I've noticed that I have unusual amounts of pride, and not the good kind of pride where I am proud of myself for doing this podcast or continuing with my blog for so many years, or, forging forward in my career as a copywriter and in film. But I'm talking about the bad kind of pride. And I'm going to let you in on how I think I've developed this bad kind of pride. So if I look at my history in terms of my educational background and the fact that I was dying to become a doctor when I was younger, and I'm thinking that I was crazy to want to do that, but if you look at my background, that's what most people where I'm from want to become because of the economical security. So life, kind of forced me into the direction that I am in right now, where I am doing more creative work, and I really, really love it. And I think I do believe that I was called to creative work, and I do it really well. But because of my belief that I was a failure, because I didn't become a doctor, and how successful I have been doing creative work, I find that I have had too much of the bad kind of pride within me. And, I kind of had to think about it. Why do I think it's bad? I am proud of myself, but I notice these traits about myself, which makes me think and makes me believe that my pride is, teetering off into the bad kind of pride. So the first thing is fault finding. I noticed that the better I became at what I was doing, I was finding fault with everybody else, finding fault with how somebody else does their creative work or how they're presenting their work. And, I was only letting their faults be the thing that I see and not the whole person. And the reason that I'm fault finding is because I'm thinking that I'm much better than they are, and instead of looking at the faults that I have in my work and what I'm doing, it has become much more easy for me to find faults in other people. And I think that is the bad part of my pride, is that I no longer accept people whole with their faults and with the good, but I'm leaning towards more fault finding, and I think that that is wrong, and that's something that I should change. Another thing is, being a little more harsh and belittling the struggles of others. People are battling with different emotional issues, and they come out in different ways, they manifest in different ways. And I found myself being a little harsh with my judgment of the way that they've reacted or the way that they're behaving, without being empathetic of why they would be acting the way that they're acting. And I think that this is also a sign of pride, that I'm thinking that my issues are sorted out and that my issues are not as bad as theirs, and that makes me harsh. But this is pride that is belittling the struggle of the other person. Why should their struggles be not as important as mine? That is me standing on pride and saying, well, your problems are not that big and you should sort them out, but my problems now, they're the ones that matter. Do you understand what I mean? I hope I'm putting this across, better than I think that I'm sounding. The biggest one has been defensiveness. I have been really defensive. And when you do creative work, you are defensive about your work because you are putting out, what you've been working on for a long time, and you're bearing your soul to people. And when people don't like it or when they criticize it, you tend to be defensive naturally, because this is you, putting yourself on the line and showing people what you've made. But there's also a different kind of defensiveness where, you're not even able to take criticism. What if what you've made could be improved, or it's not looking as good as you think that it looks, you know? And you're not able to receive that kind of criticism, but you jump towards the defensiveness to where nobody can tell you what to do. This is a form of pride as well, because you're above reproach, you're above criticism. Nobody can correct you. And I found myself being this way as well, and that is a part of the bad pride that has been inhabiting my heart. Another one another one has been, being desperate for attention. You are desperate for attention with the ideas that you have. You put your idea forward and you want everybody to like it, and when they don't, um yeah, it doesn't make you very happy. Of course we all want to be noticed, but pride is also really hungry for attention, because you want them to clap for you, and your ego gets bigger, and they clap some more and your ego gets bigger. Yeah, I mean, we all love attention, but sometimes pride will have you doing the most ridiculous things just to get that attention. And this is a red flag for me, especially when I find myself doing things and I'm not doing them simply because I love them or I think that they would help somebody or that I'm enjoying it. When I do something because I want somebody to notice me and I want them to clap for me, I see that as part of pride, the bad side of pride, where I want to be clapped for simply because I exist, and I should be applauded for existing, but not as much as I've been wanting to, you know? Yeah, so there is good news for being prideful, and this is why I am doing this podcast. I feel that I should confess that I have been prideful, and I believe that this is the beginning of the end of pride. I'm waging this war against pride. I don't want to be prideful anymore because it is not helping me in my relationships with my friends. It's not helping me in my relationships professionally. It's not helping me in my relationship with my partner and my relationship with myself. And I want to live a better life. And this podcast is about pinpointing where you are going wrong and how you can correct that so you can move forward, how you can face yourself when you know that you are doing something wrong or not living your life the way you know that you should. And so this episode is about confronting myself about how prideful I have been and how I am going to keep working at not being prideful. And I hope that the few points that I've given you will help you see whether this is happening in your own life and what you can do to curb the pride. Now, I just want to be clear, there's people that have low self-esteem and could do with being a little more prideful in themselves. And this is what I had begun this podcast talking about because of the disappointments that I had earlier in my work life, in my professional life. I was feeling really down and was really depressed about it. And then I had this nice trajectory where I started working in the creative world and I did really well. And I had this huge upsurge of pride in myself, but I let this go too high because I started to feel invincible. And in order for me to do better creative work, I'm needing to curb that pride. And so I just want you to go ahead and check yourself. Check how high your pride is. Is it good levels? Is it the good kind of pride where you're proud of what you're doing? Or is it the kind that struts and will not let other people correct it? Will not submit to anybody else, submitting to a mentor, submitting to a boss, submitting to your partner, as you forge forward to live the lives that you want to live? What kind of pride are you festering in your heart that's not letting you live a good life? You can't take criticism. You're not as joyful. You want all of this attention. All the points that I've given in this episode. Please go ahead and take a look at your own life, just as I have bared all and have been vulnerable with you on this episode, and I've let you know that I'm battling with pride. Thank you so much for listening yet again. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you subscribing to the podcast, for rating it. Please go ahead and send me any questions that you may have that you want answered. I have one more episode before the season is over. I'm going to take a little season break before I come back. I'm going to work on some new content for everybody. And please be excited about it. I am excited, and I hope that you stick around. So go ahead and visit the blog, www.trulytwaambo.com. You can follow me on Instagram, Tea Time with Twaambo, and I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
The podcast you just heard was published with Anchor. Got something you want to say to the creator of this show? Send them a voice message using the Anchor app, free for iOS and Android.